I think that's a good thing to add about it. People choose the different kind of.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being patient while I figure out the tech issues and also attend to the needs of our fellow audience members. So yeah, just thank you. We have several people on the live stream, so I just want to acknowledge you. Hello, everybody on the live stream. As we all are aware, at least I can speak for myself, I'm beyond ecstatic to welcome Joel Diaz Porter to the store tonight to celebrate his collection of poetry, ideas of improvisation. And he is joined by a cherished local writer and recent Guggenheim recipient, Yona Harvey. So can we all clap for Yona real quick? Just a little bit about myself and White Whale quickly. I'm Halsey, the events coordinator at White Whale Bookstore. White Whale Bookstore is a family-owned, general interest independent store located in the Bloomfield neighborhood of Pittsburgh. Our store motto is conversation, community, and culture, and we strive to be a home for book lovers. Our events programming features local, national, and international writers and translators reading, discussing, and celebrating literature of all genres and for all ages. Just a few events coming up that we think you might be interested in. Tomorrow, June 30th at 7 p.m., we're virtually hosting Tori Bogolino in celebration of her collection, Not Good for Maidens. And she'll be joined by Kit Frick, author of Very Bad People. And some of you might know her from Black Lawrence Press. So you can also check out our pre-order campaign. Even though Not Good for Maidens already came out, we still have all of the swag that came along with it, which includes signed vinyl sticker, or it'll come signed, get a vinyl sticker, and then a postcard that was written to the reader by the author herself. Even though she lives in England now, she's actually from a town very close to where I grew up, Ambridge, Pennsylvania. So I would consider her a local too. So come out and support her as a local writer. And then next month, on July 15th at 7 p.m., we're looking forward to hosting Bronwyn Tate, Ling Zhu, Kate Shapira, and Michael Todd Edgerton, as well as Caroline Noble Whitbeck. And that will be a fabulous evening of poetry. So tune in for that. You can find out more about these events and RSVP if they're online at whitewhalebookstore.com. Like I said, we are currently live streaming this event. So hello again to all of the folks who are on Zoom. We appreciate you being here with us on our digital interface, as well as everybody who is here in the store with us. So thank you so much for coming. We do ask that you keep your mask on at all times. The authors will only remove their masks when they're at the mic, as well as myself while I'm talking into it, just so you can hear us enunciate it clearly. And the live transcripts will pick up what we're saying as well. And the restrooms are behind me, so please feel free to use those whenever you need them. You know your body better than we do, so that's totally good. And then just so you know, the door at the back of the cafe is locked, and that's just so it's easier for me to check people's vaccine cards at the front desk, and people aren't coming in and interrupting the reading. So that is why we have that. If you do need to leave through the back door, please feel free to unlock it. It will not harm us any. And then we also have copies of Joel and Yona's books in stock. We have Having the Water and You Don't Have to Go from Mars for love, as well as ideas of improvisation over here. And if we don't have any copies, we are happy to we have some of Yona's on order right now, and I'm happy to place a hold on that for you. And we will have the opportunity for you to ask questions for our authors at the end of the night. So if you do have any, save them for then. And we will first have Yona, and then we'll transition to Joel, and then we'll round out the night with any questions that you have, and then you'll buy their books, hopefully, right? So before I go ahead and hand things over to Yona, I just wanted to say a few words that Yona actually wrote about ideas of improvisation. She said about Joel's book, Joel Diaz Porter's much anticipated poetry collection is for poetry's true believers. These poems are written with and in community, and at the same time, deeply interior. There are poems within here, from Prince to Sekou and Diarra to Phyllis Hyman and Louise Gluck. Ideas of improvisation nods to many artistic innovators, though the alliance is never to poetry, schools, or trends, but to the great human heart. Diaz Porter invites us to experience jazz and sound in ways we previously hadn't. There's a restless seeking on every page. Why can't these be West Africa's fingertips, reaching for America, reaching for me? The spirit of Lucille Clifton is felt in these poems, filled with delivery and delight, wisdom and care. Or is the goddess Aprophenia at work? However you settle that score, these poems will cast a spell on you. It's with my greatest pleasure to hand things over to Yona Harvey.
Thank you so much. Thank you, White Whale, and supporters, organizers, everybody who made this event possible. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, everybody in the live stream. Joel, he always shakes his head when I say this, but he was one of my first poetry teachers. I considered him my poetry teacher. I don't think I would be here without Joel. He taught me so much about reading poems, how to hear poems, how to recite poems better, how to teach poems. He is my mentor, going way, way back. I feel like 25 years, just a ridiculous amount of time. It's kind of, I probably shouldn't broadcast that too loud. Probably way back is good. And just one of the best stories is really Joel allowing me to hear Yusef Komunyaka's work. I remember being really young and embarrassed that I couldn't unpack some of Yusef's poems, and Joel read Yusef's work aloud to me, and then all the lights came on. So anyway, I'm really grateful to Joel. I'm excited to be here and celebrate his amazing book. It's a beautiful book, and I've been waiting forever and ever and ever. So I'm glad now that you can access it too. I'm just going to read a few poems to enter the space, and then I'm going to turn it over to Joel. Segregation Continuum. And this is after Ella Baker and Glenn Ligon. Layered in black on white canvas, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Looking at the way we look, looking forward, stepping back by way of upturned neck, by way of 3 steps back, looking black coded, by way of black modes, by way of reconstruction, by way of insurrection, by way of colored fountains, by way of elected Democrats or elected aristocrats. It is obvious we are a presence, though we have been discomforted at school gates, at rental offices, at museum entrances. Even we cannot rest who believe in freedom. We are to some an irritant, an iresome, tiresome lot. We do not subscribe just because something comes out of a leader's mouth, out of the mouth of a tyrant. So we are too difficult We are much too difficult. We are much too aware. We are much too marked. We are all that matter to us that matter. We are the most comforting presence by way of nod, by way of pound, by way of sup. We are always fashionable when we do not try. We do not try to insult except when we do, but we do not hesitate to speak of the things about which we agree or disagree. We participate at the level of our thinking, by way of our thinking, by way of our mass expression. We who believe in freedom cannot rest where once hundreds and even thousands of we ordinary people had taken a position that made us very uncomfortable when we decided, for instance, to walk rather than take the bus. All the poetry believers here, the true believers are here. Sonnet for a tall flower blooming at dinner time. Southern flower, I want to quote the bard, to serenade you, to raise a glass to you. Long and tall, you are always parched and hungry. You wobble in strong winds. You puff your bright hair when it rains. You toss off the lint of dandelions. You lean into the evening haunts with your indifferent afro. You were born in the old world city, the invisible dark girl city, the city that couldn't hold a candle, a straight pin, a slave older sins to you. You are the most beautiful dark that hosts the most private sorrows and feeds the hungriest ghosts. This poem is called Q, and it is written for and after a former neighbor in my old East Liberty neighborhood in Pittsburgh. Q. One of the 4 royal stars is watching over me. Yeah, I'm blessed in these times of nervous weather. The leaves chill in a bundle, then scatter like police off to the next doorstep. They don't step. They don't faze me. These jeans could hold 3 men, but it's just one of me, girl. Only sun, only sound, only seer. All this green to gold to red to orange is just theater. I'm the real. Keep your eyes on the navigator of snow and infinite gray. I rock these boots all year. What a storm got to do with me. Who knows the number of strolls to heaven? Not that I'm thinking on it. The heavens know my real name, but you can call me Q. Quicker than Q. But anyway, certain things a man keeps to himself. Jesus wept, so I don't. The past is for people who like to play things over and over. Me, I'm on to the next song. Listen to my own head symphony, to the royal stars, the colors. They thrill me. They fuel these legs. And I'm gonna end by reading just a section of a poem called The Dream District Origins. The poem is kind of split in half, but I'm gonna read the kind of more narrative half on the right side of the page. The Dream District Origins. My grief made me, my groove made me, Annie Laura made me eat and eat and eat. Tomatoes and cucumbers drizzled with vinegar, speckled with pepper, made me pork bacon in a cast iron skillet, made me pig's feet, made me penny candy, made me shopkeepers wary, made me chapstick, made me halter tops too, telling, made me not telling, made me John 3:16, made me baptism, made me bad perms, made me The car my mother couldn't afford made me. Late payments made me. A key hung around my neck made me. You black made me. You look like your Aunt Teresa made me. Cut grass and allergies made me. My father's strikes at the chemical plant made me. Picket lines made me. No scabs made me. A Duncan Hines cake made me. 10 weeping candles made me. A prayer and unplanned presents made me. Fingers crossed and maybes made me. Sugar made me. Salt, not enough frosting made me. A paper plate licked clean. Thank you. Joel, I'm so excited for Joel.
Thank you so much, Fiona. That was really fabulous. And I'm just going to give the brief transition. Please help me welcome Joel Diaz-Porter.
Thank you, Gunn. And thank you to the White Whale Bookstore. I just want to point out that all those many years ago when I first met Yona, she was a better poet than me already. Real quickly about the book, there's a bunch of crazy stuff in here that I tried. And so in one sense, it's really two books in one book. If you had a chance to see it, some of the words, some of the text in the book is in maroon and some of the text is black. And so all of the text together makes up one set of poems. And then the maroon words by themselves make up a different set of poems that I call ghost poems. Most of those poems are haiku or senru or Japanese short forms. Not all of them, but most of them. And so you can go through the book and just read the maroon text, and it's like another 50 or 60 poems. There's also poems in some weird places, including in the endnotes. So I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, so I'm going to start off by reading some Pittsburgh poems. And it's a weird thing. Sometimes you're blessed and you don't know you're blessed. And one of the benefits of growing up in Pittsburgh, when I did in the 60s, was that the Pittsburgh Public Schools had a phenomenal musical education thing. Everybody had to take a mandatory musical class, but you also could borrow instruments from the school, so you could learn to play an instrument, and the lessons were free. And that was not a thing I found out later on that everybody else around the country had. And I think very few school districts have that now, but that was a thing that, we just grew up with and we had. And this is as high as it goes. So anyway, I benefited, as I'm sure lots of other kids did, tremendously from being able to learn how to play an instrument and to interact with music in that way. So I'm going to start with this poem. This is called, it is called, one more quick thing. The book is called Ideas of Improvisation. It's a kind of a debate I'm having with, or at least in my mind, with Wallace Stevens, whose book was called Ideas of Order. And so it started with a poem in the book called Ideas of Improvisation at DuPont Circle. And then I wrote another one, Ideas of Improvisation in Newport. And when I put the manuscript together, I changed the titles of a lot of the poems to fit in with that theme. And so there's two series of poems in the books, and the largest series is the Idea of Improvisation poems. So having said all that, this is an idea of improvisation with the I in paradox. Once, Pythagoras, my purple plush toy, hummed joyful sounds only I could hear until metal teeth on the sprocket of logic severed his single horn. Newly numb and seeking to sew together his song, I took up the trumpet. Assuming no mistranslation, didn't Pythagoras praise music as sacred math, numbers raised to the highest power? Here, I could note how the throats of birds tend to angle when raising the seeds of melody in their beaks. Was this how my school trumpet angled to be muted as moonlight fluttered our shoebox apartment and I practiced what beauty was allowed? I believe Pythagoras could have allowed for the I in lyric as sign of an imaginary unit. Perhaps the bird part of our brains co-signed the seeds of language by angling our tangents towards evergreen musing about music. Can't the need inside a pine or phonograph needle equally sow air into sense of song? Have you ever smelled oil on a trumpet's breath or felt rhythm uncoil to kill time around midnight? Logicians might prove that death has many fugues, though little logic, since death was once branded with the fugitive logo of the fleur-de-lis. I swear, my boy T claims this may be the truest thing about beauty. A lyric can be a useful essay, but an essay is a useless ass lyric. When I play the lyre, I claim to see lyrics collecting on lips as dew collects on dogwood leaves. But do I? Maybe I only took up the horn to learn how to hold apophenia and collect her breath in the bowl of my collarbone. After an errant elbow freed some front teeth, I tried to pick up the horn again, but red graffiti scrawled in the school bathroom stall claimed a one-armed man could never play the violin. What trumpeter's mouth isn't an unread wound? Have you heard how Lee Morgan could read sheet music easily as his beloved's grocery notes, but still misread her most notable longing? There's some nights I think Pythagoras merely saw music as the grammar of sound making sentences. But listen, who among us hasn't needed to number the hoarse notes galloping out of a bridled mouth? Anybody here know the story of Lee Morgan? He was a famous jazz trumpeter who was killed by his wife, shot by his wife, and they put him. So, in keeping on that theme of Pittsburgh poems and music poems, I grew up in St. Clair Village, which is in the south part of the city. And the most famous person to grow up in St. Clair Village, anybody know who that is? Wow, yeah, there you go. Phyllis Hyman, the famous R&B singer, grew up in Pittsburgh, and actually credited our music teacher at Philadelphia Elementary, Miss Lassane, as being a huge influence on her career. And so, what else? I don't want to say too much. Okay, so in this poem, I'm going to read the ghost poem, the room poem first, and I'm going to read the poem, and then there's some haiku that are kind of like footnotes to the poem. And I guess what's important to know, Phyllis was an R&B singer. One of her most famous songs was a cover of Betcha by Golly Wow, I think by the Delphonics. And she committed suicide in June of 1991. And I went to high school with her younger brothers and sisters. Phyllis was 12 years older than me. So I did get a chance to meet her, but obviously she was out of school by that time. So anyway, this is Betcha by Golly Wow for Phyllis Hyman. Your lips, naked with June rain. What blue whale is this, whose child so alone their tasseled scarf of tightly knit notes trails to caress green hills past dusk? Or quotes lush echoes, bouncing like bald fists off stone faces that flail or float in Southside streams, warning throats to beware their half-sip woes, pulling bipolar boxcars in their flow, exiting St. Clair Village under steam. Phyllis, how your lips once puckered with flair, barely brushing our naked neck most nights with lace feathers of whistled melody rippled out of June rain. What splits our air, daring still to dip or flutter? Whose kite, straining at its cord, dying to twist free? Last train, her mascara still running. June darkness, Fireflies pulse into police lights. On the shoulder of the pallbearer, a butterfly. I just realized a lot of these Pittsburgh poems are elegies. And so I'm going to have to try to find one or two funny poems to break, to break up the sadness. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this poem that it's not, what can I say real quick? Okay, so I'm going to read the ghost poem first. And the Liberty Bridge, which is one of the most famous bridges in Pittsburgh, is architecturally significant around the world because it was one of the first cantilever bridges that was built. And there's a house that's outside of Pittsburgh that's very famous for being built with cantilevers. And so you'll hear a reference to that house in the poem too, because I can't stop myself with the wordplay and the puns. So anyway, I'll read the ghost poem and then I'll read the poem. Late sunlight, crow's wings darken the daisies. An idea of improvisation on the Liberty Bridge. Say Emily, my piano playing better half, sporting cat glasses and a floral sundress, bent to sniff a bundle of fresh daisies before dashing across a bridge. For real. Just as my iPod cued Ahmad Jamal's cover of Wave. Y'all know Ahmad Jamal's a famous jazz pianist from Pittsburgh. Okay, cool. Both a wave and a tear can be falling water. A wave can be water or a flag rippling. Some flags can be red. And as surely as the M dash is named for Dickinson, before wrestling with her text, maybe I needed an ESL course, emoji as a second language. Perhaps she fled because I couldn't tell the difference between semaphore and metaphor, or perhaps because I couldn't play a more dominant chord, or perhaps she simply longed for the longer fingers of a pianist to key the silent sea of her efflorescence. Maybe you've already read about how I allegedly gave her a ring of rust on the windowsill of her heart, or how I failed to see Emily could begin with the number E, or how soon afterwards I perhaps crossed north over a cantilevered bridge in May to toss the bouquet of daisies into the Monongahela. Say certain things accumulated a few cents toiling overtime in the olfactories. Couldn't a fine pollen have also briefly finessed a sneeze? My beloved fled just as Jamal began fingering falling water. And here, I should be frank, right? Forget that. Perhaps it's not true, but let's say I misread Emily due to the wavy signs piercing my ears. Say in place of her neck, I nosed the bottle blue scarf she left on the arm of a sofa. A steel cantilever here only holds up reality. In green truth, I didn't smell farewell until she high-heeled out the door. As she sliced up the street, late sunlight buttered her path, and I finally began to believe in God as perhaps metaphor or sugar pill. I still couldn't imagine tears as more than waves of salt water under the bridge of my glasses. Did Emily not beg us to dwell in possibility? Maybe I just imagined the Bill Evans tune spanning keys like crow's wings, darkening the day's eye until my heart gave out a refrain that rhymes with the fragrance of daisies. See, I couldn't help myself with that. The house Falling Water is designed by Frank Wright. And it's like maybe the silliest pun in the entire book, but it is what it is. Okay, this is another elegy. And this poem is called Sometimes It Snows in April. And I wrote this for my cousin Sonny, who passed away in 2007. And I'm a really big fan of Prince, who also is no longer here. And Sonny was too. And one of the things she used to tell me is no matter how big a fan of Prince I ever got to be, I would never be a bigger Prince fan than her. So anyway, this is Sometimes It Snows in April. One other quick thing. Have some of you people heard of there's a form of poem called Golden Shovel that Terrence Hayes invented? Okay, so in the Golden Shovel, you take a phrase and you write it down the right-hand margin. Take a phrase from a poem or song lyric, whatever. Okay, so this poem is a quotilla, which is a similar form, but the phrase goes on the left-hand margin instead of the right-hand margin. And I actually wrote these poems before. I got this form from the poet E.B. Shockley, actually. So this is before the Golden Shovel existed, but makes it easier to explain now. So anyway, first I'll read the phrase and then I'll read the poem. Well, first I'll read the phrase that goes on the line, then I'll read the ghost poem, then I'll read the poem. So the poem is called Sometimes It Snows in April. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land. April winds, the evening news, lilacs. April sprouts around us. Is the sky as sullen there? Wasn't the hour after we talked cruelest, most raw? In less than a month, your oncologist says breeding cells may overwhelm you. Lilacs still bloom here as there, just out screen doors. Hint of all the Prince songs we share. The purple petals nearly dead certain to flurry down, land, and bury our walkways. April's sibilant drizzle is a ride cymbal, mocking the rhythm of memories, cruelest at dusk. What other month would dream of breeding than watering lilacs as recent bruises? Out of the patter of the rain's fingers, the alto vibrato of a voice, dead on key, humming Adore, lands on these ears. April winds wane. Is that my ringtone amid the evening news? No, it's on vibrate. Cruelest is the quiet after the call. Month after month will sprout, breeding a grief fragrant as those lilacs you adore. Because right now, out on the horizon, the purple dirge of a setting sun is perhaps the last chance I'll have to be dead silent and listen for you in the land of the living. Okay, I'm going to read this poem. This poem has only kind of a tenuous connection to Pittsburgh. What do you call the epigraph when it comes after the poem? Yeah, I guess you still call it an epigraph. So anyway, one of the things that Pittsburgh is not famous for, although it should be, besides its jazz musicians, I'm shocked everywhere I go how many people don't know how many great jazz musicians came out of Pittsburgh, like Ahmad Jamal, Billy Strayhorn. Matter of fact, when I lived in DC, I used to tease my DC friends all the time because they'd be like, "Oh, we got Shirley Horn, we got Duke Ellington," and then I'd name like 5 people, you know, Billy Eckstine, Stanley Turrentine, George Benson, Ahmad Jamal, Father Hines, Mary Lou Williams. So anyway, there's also quite a number of famous poets that have come out of Pittsburgh. And probably the most famous is, would you say Gertrude Stein? Gertrude Stein, people don't realize she was from Pittsburgh. Well, technically she was born in the city of Allegheny, which is now on the North Shore, but yeah, I mean, it's Pittsburgh now. But also Gerald Stern, Jack Gilbert, and the poet, to make this all come full circle, who provided the epigraph for this poem, a poet by the name of Lucy Brockfroydo. So I'll read the epigraph at the end. And this poem doesn't have, oh, this poem does have a ghost poem. So I'll read the ghost poem and then I'll read the poem. And then one other quick thing. So this is one of the poems that's kind of a riff off of a Wallace Stevens poem. And so this poem is I guess a kind of triple ekphrastic. So there's a Pablo Picasso painting called The Old Guitarist from Picasso's Blue Period. Wallace Stevens wrote a poem called The Man with the Blue Guitar, just kind of based off of that poem. And so my poem is based on those two things, plus a photograph of the famous blues musician, Robert Johnson. And so I think there's only 2 known photographs of him. And one of them, he's sitting on a chair with a hat with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. holding the guitar. And so this poem is based on all of those things. So the poem is called The Man with the 12-Bar Blues Guitar. These 6 strings, the lies I tune. The Man with the 12-Bar Blues Guitar. 3. I sat, hat cocked, picking my guitar, a traveling man of sorts. The days seemed yellow. They said, "You got a Delta blues guitar. Can you play things colored as they are?" I replied, Marlboro dangling, "Bangs as they are is hyacinth on a Delta guitar." And they said, Bible-eyed, "We want you to play a tune outside of us, but of yourself, a gospel truth on your blues guitar, of things as a colored might dream they are." 6. I never could hang a picture quite square, although I tried to mojo it with care. I don't try to sing a man's gold tooth or linen suit, but his honey creeper soul, and eyes him down as well I can and picks him up with my Mississippi hand. When I plucks him up, moody as the moon, not sunlit like some things, like things that some say it is, it becomes a trail of how, traveling far from a Taurus that strums an acoustic guitar. 9. A ticking clock tune, colored as we are, somehow tinted by the spring star guitar, ourselves almost humming as if on pitch. And what's changed, except perhaps our faith in things as they are, and the meanings as he bends them on the blues guitar, stretched just so, the chords of change, heard in the damned juke joint, for a moment damned, the way the hue of hydrangea perhaps eternally sounds, where even the hand of God might be haze. The blues can't stop time, and thusly plucked seemed the square root of a morning star, the crossroads at midnight, but on a guitar. 12. Are these hellhound blues merely mine? Every devil of the Delta thrives on 6 strings to fill the smoky juke joint with dancing women enthralled with the moon. But the yellow-eyed men of the women are moody blue and soon coming for only my middle-parted head that seldom lies alone at night. I fingers a string of cornflowers, how to change the arrangement as it is, and how, as I frets these changes, to maybe tune my guitar so it might distill an eternal tonic and yet not bottle it. Could the blues be anything else? Epigraph. What if I were gone and the wind still reeks of hyacinth? What then? See, I got a chance to meet a lot of the famous. Actually, you know what? I was wrong. The most famous poet from Pittsburgh is August Wilson. Let me say that because I actually got a chance to meet August Wilson and with some other Black poets, and he made it very clear to us that he considered himself first and foremost a poet and a playwright second. Actually, I went to hear him read some poetry. Okay, so let me see. I'll read this last Pittsburgh poem, and then I'll finish up with a couple of other poems. So this poem is called El Magnifico. I shouldn't have to explain too much to you guys. El Magnifico was the nickname in Spanish of the great Pirates right fielder, Roberto Clemente. In English, we just call him the Great One. And so this poem begins with an epigraph from a poem that Clemente himself wrote that I translated from Spanish. And what else? That's it. I'll read the ghost poem first, and then I'll read the poem. The sound of praying, which is our window. El Magnifico. Who am I? I am a small point in the eye of the full moon. I need only one ray of the sun to warm my face. I need only one breeze from the trade winds to refresh my soul. What else can I ask if I know that my sons really love me? Roberto Clemente. Even under a heavy quilt, there's a breeze from a distant transistor radio. My lips mimic a slice of honeydew as they remember it's New Year's Day. the last before heading back to school. Straining to hear the broadcast above my brother Jeff snoring in the bunk below, I roll over. The regular program has been interrupted by the sound of waves washing against the shore, which I pretend is not my mother praying. It's January in Pittsburgh, which is to say the radiator shudders against what howls outside our cracked window. After hopping down onto cold linoleum and tiptoeing to Mama's bedroom door, I cup one ear to the plies of wood. The radio reports that a plane flying Roberto Clemente food and clothing to earthquake victims in Nicaragua is missing off the coast of San Juan. No bodies have been located, only debris bobbing in the waves. The words hit my chest like the fat end of a bat. I collapse at the base of the door until my mother cracks it, her own eyes raw, and picks me up, rocking slowly. A glove left in the Little League grass is all I knew of loss. Even though a stadium shouting, "Arriba, Roberto," was all I knew of Espanol, did not fall asleep most nights pretending he was my father. In our world of chipped asphalt and falling bricks, his John Henry swagger was perhaps all I knew of myth. Hadn't I taken a black crayon and drawn the number 21 on the back of a t-shirt, then raced to play right field because his glove upturned for a basket catch was all I knew of grace. Brown as spiced rum, blacker than barges of coal, he somehow covered the gap between Puerto Rico's cane fields and our Three Rivers. Dark smoke choked the sun. Our city of rusty bridges and rolling hills began to lose the glow from its fabled mills. And on a rocky Puerto Rican shore, his family gathered to him as waves peeked into shark's teeth and the arms of the palm trees swayed. Adios, Roberto. Arriba. Okay, so that's the last relative. So I'm gonna close by reading a couple of poems real quick. There's a whole bunch of things going on in this book besides the Pittsburgh poems and the Wallace Stevens poems and the jazz poems. But there's a lot of poems that are centered on or involve math or science. And then there's also a subset of poems in here that are my mother's family is from the Cape Verde Islands, which is an archipelago of 10 islands off the west coast of Africa. It's a former Portuguese colony. And so I have some poems that involve my Cape Verdean heritage, including some poems that are written in Creole. And the poems that are written in Creole are haiku, because they're really short. So I used to be pretty fluent in Creole, but I haven't spoken it on a regular basis in a long time. So anyway, I'm going to share a couple of Cape Verdean poems real quick, and then I'll close. So this is some of you may have heard of probably the most famous Cape Verdean worldwide is a woman by the name of Cesaria Evora. She's a Cape Verdean singer. And so there's a type of song from Cape Verde called Morna that she's famous for singing. You can think of Morna as the blues in Creole. So this poem has some words in Creole in it, the names of the 10 islands, and then some other words. And actually, I don't know if you remember this, Yona, but I wrote this poem like a really, really long time ago, and it used to end with a line that I was just like in love with. And one time I was talking to Yona about it, and she was like, I don't know about that line. And I was like, Yona, I'm married to that line. So anyway, the line's not in the poem anymore. Yona was right. So this is an idea of improvisation this morning. I'll read the ghost poem first. An airplane between these islands, the moon. Nearly every night, I slip into a slumber deep as the harbor of Saint Vicente, chasing the fragrance of a woman whose footprints fall like chuba on the dry sand of my dreams. Chuba is a Creole word that means rain, but because the Cape Verde Islands are desert islands, it also carries a connotation of hope. So let me start again. Nearly every night, I slip into a slumber deep as the harbor of Saint Vicente, chasing the fragrance of a woman whose footprints fall like chuba on the dry sand of my dreams. Say her lips are bold as Bidil Santiago, eyes green as the trees of Santontan, hair black as the black beaches of Fogo. Picture brown skin as the hills of San Nicolau. All her teeth glistening white as sal, fingernails neat as the streets of Milo, perhaps a pout round as Boa Vista, legs slender as Santa Lucia, or 2 feet tiny as Brava. Who wouldn't wish to sunbathe on her beach while the white tips of waves lick their legs with water warm as fresh milk? Palm trees dance in the breeze and an airplane pulls a white thread through the sky's blue silk. Just once, let her Criollo tongue be a sliver of sugarcane between my lips. But the Atlantic hisses like a jealous hag, insists these islands are only 10 pimples on a vast face. A heart skips quick as Coladera. Why can't these be West Africa's fingertips reaching for America, reaching for me? Tonight, the moon rises shiny as the underside of a tuna. An evil eye, it gazes with a lunacy tireless as a tide. Seagulls become questions gliding through a mind. Tell me, Luna, how far can one trace footprints of a dream's shifting sand? My pen plows crooked lines across a barren page, plants brown stanzas into terraces of the hillside of something like hope. The branches of all the trees seem to bend in the direction of answers to a different question. What small animal hasn't run on or from something rabid as desire? Okay, so yeah, I'll read a couple of these haiku. I'll read them in Creole first, and then I'll read them the English versions. I don't know how many are in here. I'm not going to read all of them anyway. There's 10 islands in the archipelago. 9 of them are inhabited, and our family is from the island of Fogo, which is the Portuguese word for fire. And Fogo has an active volcano on it, which I think last erupted maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So among other things, the beaches on Fogo, the sand is all black from the pumice. So this poem it's a haiku sequence. It's called Ideias de Improvisação na Crioula, the ideas of improvisation in Creole. All right. Concha na praia, tudo coisas no catasabe. Shells on the beach, all of the things we don't know. Okay, there's a wine that's made from grapes that are grown on the island of Fogo, and that wine is called manicom. Okay. Manicom, na língua de mulher, fogo. Manicom on a woman's tongue, fire. Morna, azul de mar, cacima, azul de céu. Morna, the blues of the sky are not the blues of the sea. And I'll leave you guys with this one. Concha na bureja, mesmo que mar, saudade de mar. Saudade is a Portuguese word. We don't really have an exact translation for it in English. It's somewhere between like homesickness and nostalgia. It's like an intense longing, but it can be for a person or a place. So anyway, yeah, so this is, I'll read it one more time and then I'll read it in English. Concha na bureja, mesmo que mar, saudade de mar. In English, that would be conch to your ear, even at the ocean, longing for the ocean. So I'll leave you guys with this last one. That's a riff, by the way, off of a very famous haiku by Basho, which I think goes cuckoo's cry, even in Kyoto, longing for Kyoto. So whether it's true or not, I consider myself a poet in the tradition of radical love, like the troubadours or Sufi poets or poets like Rainer Maria Rilke or even the American poet Mary Oliver. And so the most famous poet worldwide in that tradition is the poet Rumi. So there was a Black American spoken word / poetry group called the Last Poets in the late 60s, early 70s. And so I remember, I don't know, I was reading the back of one of their records, and one of the poets' name was Jalaluddin. And so at that time in the 70s, there were a lot of Black people that changed their name to Arabic names, but I had never seen the name Jalaluddin before. And I was thinking maybe, like Muhammad Ali, he chose a famous person to name himself after. So I went to the library and looked up the name Jalaluddin to find out if it was a famous person. And it was a famous person. So Jalaluddin is Rumi's first name. So that was actually how I first learned of the poet Rumi. So this poem is called The Rumi in You. And I'll read the ghost poem first, and I'll finish with the poem. So central to faith, windblown rain. The Rumi in you stirs to wonder. What bruise could ruin love more than the rasp of eroding rain? When I say rasp, you may think of rust, another type of ruin related to rain. Did you not grasp how Jalaluddin was among the last poets whose nappy beard faced ruin in every nation, including rumination? As one harvest moon acquired a goatee of clouds, didn't you almost admit to whispering a weak chin as if your own ruined beauty was an unwearable thing? Although you seldom whispered it, wabi-sabi, Japanese for the rain of ruin, could be a Rumi word. When you first heard the flamenco of ruin begin to flower, did you lament or invent a belief in wabi-sabi? Could such belief in lonely bruising begin addiction to the long open you found in wound? Or say why that eye so central to your faith ran quietly as a letter left out in the rain? Perhaps outside some window, you misheard the whirling music of windblown petals whispering, rain in mystery. As you once saw a bruise begin to whisk a thickening rue from a flower's fat sorrow, couldn't your beard have also masqueraded as faith or masculinity, or perhaps even a beloved which blooms through dark whiskers, until you start to hear how some poets become lovers of the sound of rain, but others simply lovers of the sound of ruin. My name is Josie Porter. Thank you very much.
I was impressed. You're the first writer we've ever hosted where we've had to put it up the entire way. I love that. But it was a fabulous reading. I want to say thank you so much to both of you, Yona and Joel. Can we give one more round of applause? That was incredible. We originally were going to do a Q&A, but we are actually right on the hour. So I want to say thank you all so much. I'm sure if any of you have questions here in the audience, Joel and Yona would be happy to answer them. But like I said, we have Yona and Joel's books over here. We have plenty of ideas of improvisation. We just didn't receive our shipment in time for Yona's book, but we do have those on the way. So if you are interested in purchasing either Hemming the Water or You Don't Have to Go to Mars for Love, we are more than able to, set them aside or even like ship them to you, whatever you need. I got you. So thank you all so much again. Please feel free to linger, browse the books, and I'm here if you have any questions. Have a fabulous evening, and also bye everybody on the live stream.